Hey guys, I'm Ro, I'm Operations Manager here at Chimney Coffee, and today we're going to talk through a basic V60 recipe. So we've got all of our equipment here. What we need is some hot filtered water, some coffee, pretty important, scales, filter paper, and our V60 and server. So we're going to start by just folding our filter paper and putting in our V60 and just pre-wetting the filter. This also heats the vessel our coffee is going to go into, which is good so it doesn't get too cold. So we're just going to swirl that and quickly tip it out. So today we're going to be brewing our February Discovery coffee. So we've got our coffee grounds here. We've done sort of a medium to coarse grind. We're doing 30 grams. We're going to do about a 1:16 ratio. So we've got 30 grams of coffee and we're going to aim for 500 ml of or grams of water. So we've got our 30 grams in here. We're just going to tare our scales. And we've got our preheated kettle. So this is going to be around 91 to 93 degrees. We're going to start our pour. So we're going to start with a bloom, and this is to get any CO2 out of the coffee. So you'll see it bubble as you go. I tend to pour double the amount of grounds of coffee that we've put in to keep it simple. So about 60 grams. And then I wait 30 seconds just to give it some time basically to let out any excess gas that's in there, any excess CO2. The fresher the coffee, the more you'll see it bubbling essentially. It's normally best to brew coffee after it's rested a little bit, it's not too fresh. So this one is a day old, so it's quite fresh, but normally we would recommend waiting at least a week before you brew it. It's all dependent on a lot of things, but a week is a good basic place to start. I love it at 2 to 3 weeks, but it can taste great quite a while afterwards depending on how you're storing it. So once we've hit our 30 seconds, we do our first pour. I do it in 2 stages. So our first pour, I like to go up to 350 grams of water. So you slowly just pour in circles. Try and keep it an even pour if you can. And watch your weight on your scales. And this is basically just to get the coffee moving in the V60 and agitate it a little bit so the water can kind of hit all those coffee grounds and start extracting the coffee. Perfect. So we've just hit our 350. You can give it a little swirl if you want. It's up to you, it depends on your style really, how you like to brew. But that tends to get all the sort of grounds that stick to the sides of your V60 and just get them to sort of settle back down. And then we wait a little bit until we've got enough room, and then we're going to pour the rest of our coffee, so 150 more, till we get to 500. There we go. So we're now at our 500 grams of water, so I'm just going to give it a final swirl. And I'm just going to leave them. And then hopefully we'll have a lovely, beautiful brew at the end. A couple of tips, basically, I think that will really help elevate your coffee brewing. Even just doing a basic recipe like this, or a cafetiere or anything like that, is freshly ground coffee if you can. So getting whole bean. If you've got a grinder at home, genuinely will have such a good impact on your brewing. The coffee is just going to be, it's going to be fresher, it's going to smell better, it's going to taste better. So that's a really good one. Using filtered water is also really good. So you can buy bottled water if you want, or just even having a filter at home obviously is really great. But yeah, basically if you've got your steps, follow your steps. And then if you ever want to make any changes, it's always better to maybe change one thing at a time. So that might be the weight of your coffee. It might be the grind size of your coffee if you go finer, or if you go coarser. It might be the temperature of your coffee. I like to, for this coffee, this is like a medium roast. It's a honey process. It's going to be really lovely and sweet, and to kind of really highlight those sweet notes, I go for a slightly lower temperature. So I like to do 91 degrees. This is to kind of bring out a bit more sweetness and fruity flavours. It will have some chocolatey notes probably, but less so with that. If I wanted a bit more chocolatey notes, I'll probably do like 94 degrees. Depends on your preference. I like a fruity coffee. Right, brilliant. Now we're done. So that was around 3 to 3.5 minutes, which is perfect. And now we get to taste it. Yeah, really lovely. Nice. we're going to go through a bit more of an advanced V60 brew guide. So we're going to do a 30-gram recipe today with a 1:16 ratio. So we're aiming for 500 grams of coffee out, basically. So coffee's all good to go. We're going to tare our scales. How we're going to do this brew is we're going to pour slightly differently from how I've done in previous brew guides. And we're going to do a 5-step pour. So we're going to start with our bloom, and we're going to do 4 more pours after that. I'll explain it as I go. So tare your scales, and when you're ready, basically you want to start with your bloom. For this one, I'm going to do a 75-gram bloom. And I start my timer, and I'm going to do that 75-gram pour. I'm just going to try and make sure all of my grounds are nice and wet. Lovely. And we're just going to wait, essentially, for the water to drip through, and then we're going to do our second pour. Our second pour is going to be 125 grams in total. So this gets us up to 200 grams. Your first 2 pours, you want to get up to about 200 grams. Then your next 3 pours, you want to split evenly, do 100 grams each to get to 500 grams at the end. So I'm going to start doing my second pour. It's 125 grams in total, so to get us up to 200 grams. Lovely. So I've got up to 200 grams. I always like to just give my coffee a little swirl. And we're just going to wait. It's a waiting game with this one. We're just going to wait for all of the water to drain out, and then we're going to do our next pour. You can kind of play around a little bit with the divide between your first 2 pours. So for this one, we've done 75 and 125. But if you want to, and to try and get a bit more sweetness or acidity out of it, you can play around with it. So once you get comfortable with the brew, you can just play around and see how it affects your cup at the end, and which one you prefer, and just go for it, basically. And then we just like to keep the last 3 consistent, 100 grams each. And it should be around, your brew time should be around 3 to 4 minutes for this sort of size brew. That's what we're aiming for. Lovely. So I'm just going to start my third pour of 100, which will get us up to 300 grams. I pour in circles. It's generally recommended to just pour in circles. This is to get the grounds moving a bit. It means you kind of get a more even extraction. You're trying to cover as many of those coffee grounds as possible, so that they all evenly get extracted. This is to provide you basically with like a really nice balanced brew. Not too bitter, not too sweet, not too acidic. You just want something that kind of gives you a bit of everything. If you find that your brew's taking a bit too long and your coffee's tasting slightly punchier or slightly maybe more bitter than you would like, then what you can do is just do a coarser grind setting. Try that and see how that goes. So just doing our 4th pour now, going up to 400 grams in total. Wait for all that water to drain out, and then we're going to do our last pour and see how it tastes. We're just going to wait for this to pour out, and then we're going to do our final pour, which looks good. We're going to go up to 500 grams. There we go. And when your brew is done, which it looks like it is, we've got a lovely flat bed, finally get to taste it. So yeah, really lovely. A little bit more sweetness than our last brew where we just did a sort of basic recipe. Yeah, just really lovely coffee. Enjoy.